making sense of the stories shaping our world.
There must be some sort of strategy, you would think.
Beyond 100 Days on BBC World News.
Welcome back to today's programme. Now, this lot coming up behind me are more like us than we thought. The human brain has evolved over thousands of years to accommodate our ever more complex needs and those of our societies. It's given us the big brain we need to communicate, cooperate, reach consensus, empathise and socialise. Well, now it seems the same is true for these beautiful creatures, the whales and dolphins. Well, Michael Muthukrishna was one of the co-authors involved in this new research, and as you can see, is here with me in the studio. Welcome to the programme. Tell me a little more then about this research you did.
Sure. So my research and the research of my collaborators, Suzanne Schultz at Manchester and Kieran Fox at Stanford, is ultimately about humans. But what cetaceans allow us to do is to find a species that's so different from our own, but that has all these parallels. And these parallels are specified by evolutionary theories that we were ultimately interested in testing.
And in terms of the parallels, I mean, the bigger brains, they take more energy, so more food is required.
That's right, yeah.
And presumably the starting point for you is the brain is bigger for a purpose.
That's
and you
right,
have to work
yeah.
out what the purpose is.
Exactly. So, I mean, you know, you might think you're better off with a bigger brain, but actually, because they're so calorifically expensive, you need to be able to pay for that. So you're better off with a smaller brain if you can get away with it. So the fact that we have these large brains, other primates do, and these large brain cetaceans like bottlenose dolphins and orca, there must be a reason for it. And the reason is specified by the social brain hypothesis and the cultural brain hypothesis. And it seems to be wrapped up in these tight-knit social groups and these large behavioral repertoires.
So tell me more about that as we see these pictures. I mean, what are they doing, the dolphins and the whales, that other animals are not doing?
So what they're doing is that they're learning from each other, which is a much more efficient way to do things. So rather than try to, say, figure out where all of the food sources are by themselves, they'll allow everyone to kind of go out, and then they'll pick on, you know, who found it, and then copy them. So what allows you to do that is having a larger group and a more tight-knit group, and the ability to kind of communicate with your fellow group members.
And other animals, what are they doing then? Sort of hit and miss, is it?
That's right. Most other animals are kind of engaging in this asocial learning where they're trying to figure out everything on their own. The key to human success and the key to the success of these large-brained dolphins is to rely on other people.
And that's absolutely the key, isn't it? I mean, in terms of human brains, in terms of the way we look after the young, I mean, they're juvenile for a very long time, and that's part of the same process, isn't it? The learning process. And dolphins and whales, they're effectively doing the same thing, is that right?
Yeah, so they have all these features in common with us. So orca, for example, have menopause just as we do, which is an evolutionary puzzle, but it makes sense if you're a social learner because grandmothers are almost like Wikipedias of their time, downloading all this information to the young.
And when you see dolphins play or help fishermen with sort of herding fish, what are they doing there? What's happening? So
they cooperate with each other. They teach each other hunting techniques. They have collaborative hunting, but they also seem to cooperate with other species. So they play with humpback whales, for example. They herd fish into fishermen's nets. They seem to do it for fun. But the key is that they're able to do this in these very complex ways.
But they're not effectively getting anything out of it, which is sort of puzzling, isn't it?
It is
Again, it's a sort of parallel to us.
It's a little bit like us. So the same way you might play with a dog, they seem happy to play with humans. I'm not sure who the dog is in this case.
Why haven't they evolved further then?
Well, you know, a couple of reasons. One is I think we have these hands which are amazing. They allow us to manipulate things very easily. The other thing is it's very difficult to light a fire underwater, and so that kind of limits where they can go.
In terms of that basic environment underwater, I mean, what is still left to learn about them, about that broader environment?
Yeah, so the main contribution here was to gather all this data that had been collected by cetacean researchers over the years. And what we really discovered is, A, there's enough to say something about these evolutionary relationships, but there's so much we don't know about this very evolutionarily alien taxa in this strange, strange world that's so very different to land-based animals.
What don't you know then?
Well, there are many, many missing gaps. It's just simply that we just don't know if some species are engaging in alloparenting or not, whether they have these complex signature whistles where they have names for each other, whether they gossip